Okay, so I'm sure you guys know about Marianne Williamson. She ran for president in both 2024 and 2020. I should thought she'd make a bit more of a splash in 2024 just as an anti-Biden like protest vote, especially for young people. But I mean, maybe because the media boxed her out, and maybe she just doesn't have the makeup for it. And I think she ended up losing a lot of her support base over the issue of Israel Palestine as well. So oftentimes it looks like the hardcore like issues that people really break on tend to be like Israel or like vaccines. Those seem to be like the really hardline opinions. It's pretty interesting. But she is here basically saying that like we can't coordinate Kamala Harris. We need to have an open convention to have some way to actually choose our candidate because Joe Biden essentially, right, he got voted in. He won all the primaries. But in the news of the debate, he essentially got cooed by the Democratic leadership, right? The party bosses came in and said, "Hey, you're stepping down." And I guess Pelosi really fucked him hard too, because the reports say like she was not gonna let go until he lost. She was like, "Oh, you could do it the easy way or the hard way, but you're getting the fuck out of here." So I think Big Mommy Pelosi really came in and just sort of just bent him over and spanked him basically. So he got removed. Now the situation is like, oh, okay, well Kamala's the next one, and so let's see what Marianne Williamson has to say as to whether or not this is a good strategy.
You want a process where all candidates, including yourself, are taken seriously here, are considered in a very serious manner. How do you go about doing that this close to the convention?
Well, I have to get 300 delegates. We have a few. People can write who are delegates to convention at marianne2024.com. Not that signing that pledge to nominate me would mean that you were actually voting for me at the end of the process. It would mean that you were standing for an open convention. The problem over the last year and a half is that it was decided that Joe Biden would simply be rubber stamped. The answer now is not to rubber stamp Kamala Harris. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited about this moment. Democrats need to take advantage of this exciting moment. But we also need to think deeply about what the larger goal is here. The larger goal is winning in November. So the tack that many people are taking is let's have everyone endorse her. Let's have everyone stand in line, which is exactly what we were doing behind Joe Biden. This is not democracy, number one. And also, it's not the way to win beyond the vote blue no matter who. Remember, Democrats can't just win if only people who are already committed Democrats vote for us in November. We need to appeal to independence. We need to recognize complacency itself as our opposition here. Hillary, this is very much like 2016. It was a mistake for us to say, let's just continue the win of the last 8 years. Too many people said, what win, what success, lady, I'm drowning. That was their response to Hillary Clinton. We cannot run just by saying that we've done so well in the last 4 years, and we also can't run just by making it about prosecuting Donald Trump. We will win by talking to the American people about how we're going to improve their lives over the next 4 years. And Kamala Harris should be not only able, which I assume she's able, but she should be made to speak to this. We need to talk to the American people about health care. I need to hear from her about not only the obvious things like Ukraine, like Israel and Palestine, like immigration, but what about hunger in America? What about the fact that 1 in 4 Americans live with medical debt? What about the fact that 39% of Americans are skipping meals regularly?
And the donors also. You have the analysts saying this is a done deal. Can you slow it down at this point? And what would it take to slow it down to open up the field for others like yourself to really have a chance here?
I don't want to slow down the energy. It's kind of beautiful, the energy, the excitement, the feeling among Democrats. We have a chance now. We have a chance. What I'm saying, however, is we have to keep our eye on the ball. The ball is winning in November. And the idea of everybody just falling in line, endorsing Kamala without any insistence, what you got, Kamala? What are your views? How are you going to do this? That is not democracy, and it's not even a winning strategy. A winning strategy is to say very respectfully to Kamala Harris and anyone else who would come in. So far, the only person who's filed a petition is me. But if it's me, let it be me. Why should we be so afraid of that? I think two women speaking not in any kind of a catty way, but in a respectful way and a meaningful way.
Are you calling
would be
for
very
debates
good
here?
for America. Of course I am, and that's why I'm seeking to get those nominations. I've got a few. We've got to stop surrendering our free thinking. We've got to stop being so afraid of democracy. We've got to stop being so afraid of an open conversation. An open convention will be very exciting, and anything less than that will get the excitement of the already vote blue no matter who. That is not enough to win in November.
I'll tell you what, the last debate definitely showed America a big difference between Trump and Biden. We saw it was such a disaster for President Joe Biden, that debate. So wouldn't that be exciting to have the opportunity to debate this time around among those that want to be on that Democratic ticket? You were on the debate stage with Kamala Harris when both of you were running for president. What do you think her strengths are? What do you think her weaknesses are?
She's an experienced woman. However, her weaknesses, what does she stand for? What issue do you associate with her? Her civil rights record is very bad.
Yeah, so I think she has a pretty interesting analysis going on here that I definitely agree with for sure. I think that there's a big issue with just coordinating Kamala Harris, and I'm really afraid for sort of the future of the Democratic Party, unfortunately, because in my personal opinion, the best presidential candidates, who we can kind of look to recent history for this, is the best candidates come out of a fair, open primary. And that really requires this. There's a lot of blame that goes, from my perspective, a lot of blame that goes on voters and delegates as well. Because in order to have a genuine election, you have to have open-minded voters and open-minded delegates. So when there's a race with 17 people and Biden gets a default support of 20+% starting from day one, he did nothing. He's just the vice president eating off of Obama's popularity. That indicates to me that there's a lack of openness. When South Carolina goes +50, I think Biden got a majority in the state with the 17-man race. It's typically hard to get majorities with 3 people in an election. That's not an open-mindedness towards the election candidates. And so there's a problem that exists amongst the voters as well who are not open-minded. It's to the point where you say, oh, well, who else? The thing is, you don't know who else because you haven't given anyone a chance to run yet. And so Bill Clinton, for example, I think Bill Clinton might be a better politician than Obama, and I think that's a really interesting debate. We're not talking about like progressive politics here. We're talking about, obviously Bill Clinton was not very good on progressive politics, right? He did some stuff, but a lot of stuff he did was a lot of, conservative triangulation and things like that. And a lot of the things that he did with like immigration and stuff like that also like contributed to like MS-13 becoming like a transnational gang and stuff like that. So a lot of bad stuff that you may not even think about or know about. But he did a lot of triangulation from a political science standpoint. Look it up if you like, but basically it's like, there are 2 sides and then, hey, I'm rising above in the middle. And so you end up doing like a bunch of Republican stuff on the way there. But anyways, so he came out, he was actually a dark horse candidate. So when a lot of people say the Clinton dynasty or whatever, it started from a very genuine place in that Bill Clinton really broke through. He was a random Arkansas governor. He was not like some huge dude or anything like that. He just broke through. Like, he was a random sort of dark horse guy who came through and just fucking broke through. And he's arguably the best politician at the Democratic Party in the past 50 years, 5 decades. And then Obama does the same thing, right? He does the same thing. Hillary is being coronated by Bill, right, and the party. But Obama comes through, he breaks through, and credit to Obama, man. He really made that himself. And so we really need to have an analysis of how these things are won, because like Biden's victory, for example, was a situation where he's just eating off of the support of Obama, right? He never himself actually won anything. He got like 4% or whatever. I remember laughing at him in 2008 when I was like 8 years old, being like, damn, look at Biden, he fucking sucks. I didn't use those words, obviously, but we really need to understand the difference between these things. And so what I think the danger we're getting into now is we don't have any elections anymore. We had 2016 was just blatantly rigged, where the person who's supposed to be centering and holding down the election is blatantly biased in favor of one. It's already tainted. The well has been poisoned, right? And then in 2020, you have a situation where it's like, hey, we're losing, so we're all going to team up against you. And it's like, what? Like, dude, what the fuck? You're all just going to, like, team up against. And so it's like, there's not really true, like, full-on competition, right? Because you're not supposed to have this kind of, collusion going on between those kinds of competitors, right? There's supposed to be separation and free competition and things like that. And I think it's just really dangerous because we're going to get into a position now where we don't choose the proper candidates because they're not well vetted. And I think competition breeds the best candidates as well. And so I think Kamala is actually being hurt here. She probably doesn't think so. I know she's being hurt by this. This is going to hurt her. A competition for candidates is really good because it exposes potential weaknesses and it exposes potential opportunities for you. So I would point to the example of Hillary Clinton. It was a really, really great example of a situation where she really had a great opportunity where it's like, whoa, there's this huge progressive wing of the party. Bernie Sanders has all these supporters. Dude, if you just make even like the most basic overtures to that wing, think about how many people you could just ooze in, right? But if that didn't exist, let's say she just got coronated, there was no other candidates against her, she would have never even noticed. She would have been like, whoa, I could have tapped into all that? What? And so it allowed the opportunity. The problem is Hillary was such a dog shit candidate, she didn't tap into anything. She did a JD Vance. She did JD Vance before JD Vance, right? She chose Tim Kaine. Horrible fucking vice presidential pick. It did nothing to balance out the ticket. It was white bread with white bread. It wasn't like, hey, white bread with, I don't know, like some ground beef or something. Just like something like switch it up a little bit, right? It did absolutely nothing. No overtures, no changes in her policy that were noticeable, anything like that whatsoever, right? And then we just got blamed for everything. And, she won all the states that mattered or whatever. But it gave her the opportunity. She just failed to seize on it. That's her fault. And in fact, the competition has been quashed so hard. I don't know if you guys know this. In 2016, Joe Biden was supposed to run. He wanted deeply, deeply to run. He's a very ambitious political guy. Very, very ambitious, right? He wanted to run, but the Hillary wing and the Obama wing, who were basically the same people, came through and basically told him not to run. Behind the scenes, they convinced him not to run. They didn't say, hey, you should run and the best man wins. They were like, no, don't run. We want Hillary to run. And so somehow Hillary was able to chokehold down to like 4 people where everyone was a random except her. Bernie was a random too. He ended up getting a lot of support himself, but also a lot of it was just an anti-Hillary vote as well. So like at least 20% of his support, at least minimum, was just a straight up anti-Hillary vote. And this, I think, is hugely problematic. And so I think the last time we had like a real true primary was 2008. And this is the fault of obviously party bosses, but also the voters and now the delegates. And so Kamala Harris has already knocked up more than half the delegates. And so I'm sure a lot of the comments are like, oh, well, she already won. There's no one else. What kind of election is there where there's one fucking candidate? That's not a real election. That's like a Saddam Hussein election. That's the only ones I know of where there's just one candidate. No shit, she's going to win. She's the only fucking candidate. And I guarantee you, if there was a quickly made formal process of either an open convention or a primary, and the open convention is about 2,000 delegates from all over the country, members of all different states and parties, and so I think it would be superior to just a straight up coronation. I think it would be worse than a primary, with the maybe slight hint of a chance of, because I think primary voters are stupid as well. They're also not open-minded. Primary voters are also, they gave Biden all that default support in 2020 for doing nothing, right? Just for failing upwards by being Obama's vice president. They didn't give anybody really a chance, right? So I think that primary voters are also like this, and a lot of people now are just like, yeah, fuck it, like they're denying that it's kind of like monarchic. But so she's basically the next one in line. And I think if this is the case where we're just going to have the vice president is the next president, we need to have increased scrutiny in the Democratic primary. There has to be. So one solution I was thinking of was, if you're going to run, you need to announce who your vice president is prior to the primary beginning, and every vote cast has to be for a ticket, because then at least there's some kind of legitimate vote for who the next presidential nominee is going to be. Obviously, you vote for the ticket in the general, but by that time it's Republican versus Democrat. It's not who do I want for the Democrat. It's, oh, fuck, I have to choose between Republican and Democrat. And then they're going to be the next presidential nominee by default. Just by default, they're going to be the next presidential nominee, either through full-on default support by leeching off the president of the United States, or just by straight up being coronated. I mean, Biden got cooed, dude. He got cooed by the party bosses, and then now he's just getting replaced. You know what I mean? And supposedly everyone supports Kamala, but there's no formal election. There's no race. There's a Saddam Hussein election. There's no one running. There's literally no candidates, and there would be candidates if there was a formal process where it's like, hey, okay, we're going to do this thing where we're going to have this open convention. Here's your window to announce. We'll have a couple of debates here. Then we'll have the convention on X day, and it could be done in a couple months. But you can just run out the clock and then just say, like, I think she mentions the whole chaos theory in here. That's just not the case, man. This weird, like, I don't know if they think it's like the Joker or something like that, but this is just not, like, this kind of competition and quote-unquote chaos is good because you create this ability for groups to really fight with each other, express their feelings. And also, if Kamala wins, she will be a better candidate if she wins a competition as opposed to just going here. The lack of competition breeds weak candidates, even the same candidate. Because let's say Kamala runs and she's like, oh shoot, this is something I can tap into. This is another group I can tap into. I need to alter my speech, or I need to alter, maybe I'll make some concessions to this group or whoever to bring them into my voter base. That gives her opportunity to make her a better candidate. So I think she would actually be a better candidate. I actually feel better about her odds winning if she were to actually win a competition, because it means that she had to be battle tested and she had to adjust to that. Now, if she doesn't adjust to the competition like Hillary did, then it's going to end up being useless, right? But anybody in good faith would respond to competition. Hillary, I think, is just a really special case where it's just really massive narcissism mixed with, like, she's weird because she's obviously just a massive power-hungry narcissist. But usually those people will be down to just like adjust to wherever the wind is blowing. Hillary's like, fuck it, I'm not even doing that. Fuck you guys, I'm just me, I guess. I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it, to be honest. But I think she's hurting herself. But I think nobody else thinks that way. And so this is really going to hurt her a lot, in my opinion. And it's going to hurt the party moving forward. And it actually makes me really scared, because now the debate is who's going to be her vice president. And I just realized that a couple days ago. I was like, oh shit. Whoever's the vice president is the default nominee next time. So it's like, oh my God, dude, now we have to take that into account for the vice president. Because no matter what, either via the means of default support in a fake primary, or via literal coronation, literal just straight up, here's the crown, that's the next nominee. And it's like, oh God, dude. So now you have to take that into account too. And it sucks because the vice president's going to have to be someone it has to be a white male just to balance out the ticket, right? And it's going to be like, oh, they're probably going to end up not being as progressive as you want. And it's just like, all right, bro, like we're just in a trap now. And so I think we need more. The solutions, I think the Democratic Party needs to be more democratic, not monarchic. Don't just go into a primary and all the voters are like, who do I know? It's to the point where people are now saying, well, who would you choose? Who's a better candidate? The thing is, I don't know who the better candidate is yet, because there is somebody out there potentially that I'm not really super aware of, and maybe they haven't shown all their skills. Maybe I don't even fucking know who they are. But when given the chance, they will prove themselves. But because we're not giving the opportunity for anyone to prove themselves, you're obviously just going to be biased towards people we already know. And that's how we get into this, like, here's a line of the crown. And so if this is the case, what we need to do is we need to start writing down, like, we all need to start circulating on social media and everywhere, a list. Like, hey, here's my coronation list, where it's like, okay, this person should be VP, and then just like, this is the line of VPs, because that's going to be the default candidate, either via default support like Biden, or it's going to be like a Kamala coronation. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be something like that, or like a Hillary coronation, things like those. And Obama broke that. Like, Bill Clinton, he comes through and really like breaks through. Then he tries coronating Hillary just by, being the first lady and whatnot. And then, Obama breaks it, credit to him. And then, Biden is trying to do it, but Biden and Hillary are fighting over the crown. Obama chooses Hillary over Biden. Biden's like, fuck you, Obama. What the fuck? He wins, and then now he loses again. Like, he was really happy because he won. He really stuck it to him. They chose Hillary over him. He's like, I've proven you wrong, suckers. But he's gone in 4 years, which is not very good. So I think that Marianne is correct. I think that it is important, and I think it's a really big mistake for the party to be so monarchic and anti-democratic. I think it's just a huge, huge mistake. Even this view that elections, like, I see people thinking that, oh, well, if you challenge the candidate, it's going to make them weaker. I completely disagree. I would completely turn it down its face. If Kamala gets a challenge, there's only opportunity for going upwards. Unless she fails to meet good faith operations. I think if she operates in good faith, I think it'll benefit her easily. But again, if you're like Hillary Clinton, where you refuse to just be like, oh, hey, let me like work to get these people's votes instead of being an entitled like POS, then it's probably not going to work. But that's her fault, though. That's not the fault of competition. Competition can only give you the opportunity to do something. Ultimately, it's your decision to seize the opportunity, right? So I think that's just a big mistake. And so I'm in agreement with Marianne Williamson. It makes me really concerned for the future of the party, because now you essentially we're just coronating kings and queens. We're not actually having elections, and the voters are at fault. The delegates are at fault. The party is at fault. Everyone's at fault. Every single human is at fault right now, because nobody gives anybody a real chance. Nobody gives anybody a real chance in these primaries, and it just goes, well, who's the biggest name? Oh, it's Biden. Well, let's just go with him. Fuck it. There's 17 candidates. Fuck it. Let's just go with Biden. Who cares? It didn't used to be like that. You know what I mean? At least not for a little bit. Maybe before that it was, but at least now I mean, I think JFK broke through too, if I'm not mistaken. I think a lot of the Democratic Party was pissed. I think even like Eisenhower was really fucking mad that this young handsome dude broke through. So again, man, you just think about it like, bro, who are the best candidates? And again, dude, it's people who break through. It's not coronated people, not coronations. She won 4%. She dropped out. Her campaign was a humiliation. It was a humiliation. It converged to 4. The limit of her, polling sequence was 4. It's just like, it's a bad direction forward, I think, and it's really, really concerning, and I think it's going to harm her and the party moving forward in the future. With that said, I will support Kamala if she's the nominee, and I will vote for her, but I just think that she's missing out on a big opportunity here, and I think that it's a really scary direction for the future of the party. So start circulating your coronation lists, because that's where I think we're headed now. You just have to be like, just put out a list. I'll send mine out as like an outline, and then you could just be like, oh, okay, well, here's my person, okay, well, let's go Bernie, and then we'll make her his VP, AOC, and then AOC will be the default nominee. Then blank is her VP, and that's the nominee, and then blah, 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 right? So that's what you should do, like the monarchy line. There's just a blatant monarchy at this point, basically.